As the UN General Assembly kicks off, will all proceed as normal with Palestinian delegates banned and UN diplomats sanctioned? International recognition of Palestinian statehood was firmly on the UN agenda. But can and should talks proceed if Palestinian passport holders can't attend? Plus, should the location of the world's biggest diplomatic gathering be reconsidered if diplomatic rules no longer apply? I'm Andrea Sankey, and this is the Newsmakers. When the United States imposed sanctions on the UN's Special Rapporteur for Occupied Palestine, some labeled it an assault on the rule of law. Francesca Albanese had spoken out passionately against Israeli human rights violations in Gaza. And the U.S. saw her engagement with the ICC to prosecute those responsible as an overreach of power. Fast forward to today, though, and Washington is taking a different kind of action against those representing Palestinian interests by denying visas to Palestinian passport holders, including officials in the West Bank. Many accuse Washington of illegally stopping a diplomatic process and efforts to formulate a peaceful two-state solution. Here's a look.
The United Nations, the world's most senior diplomatic organization, opens for its 80th session. But absent right now are any official senior diplomatic contingents from Palestine, after the Trump administration moved in August to bar around 80 Palestinian officials, including Palestinian Authority Mahmoud Abbas, from getting visas to enter the US. Restrictions were later expanded, according to several media reports, with US consular officers told to refuse all non-immigrant visas to all otherwise eligible Palestinian Authority passport holders.
The United States is imposing sanctions that deny visas to PLO members and PA officials in accordance with Section 604A1 of the Middle East Peace Commitments Act. These actions reflect our national security interests and our commitment to holding the PLO and PA accountable for undermining the prospects for peace.
It was met with swift condemnation.
We call upon the American administration to reverse its decision. This decision will only increase tension and escalation. We are keen to continue with Arab partners and foreign friends in the movement toward international recognition of the State of Palestine.
By convention and by design, the US is generally obligated to allow access for foreign diplomats to the UN according to a 1947 agreement. It is a place where even representatives from nations undergoing sanctions or other embargoes by the US are normally exempt from those travel restrictions if attending the UN in an official capacity. The restriction on Palestinian Authority and PLO representatives is widely seen as a move to prevent their presence and participation in the upcoming General Assembly General Debate, which takes place in the latter half of September.
The United Nations is a neutral space. It is a sanctuary working for peace, where conflicts are resolved, where wars are averted, and that, in that sense, the United Nations General Assembly, founded 80 years ago, France being amongst the founding member countries, cannot be subject to any access restrictions.
Countries like France, the UK, Australia, Canada, and Belgium have publicly announced that they will formalise their recognition of Palestine's statehood at the upcoming general debate. But the Trump administration has been vocal in siding with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and refusing to endorse Palestinian statehood, with many feeling the visa refusals are a retaliatory move against the groundswell of statehood recognition.
We told all these countries, we told them all. We said, if you guys do this recognition stuff, it's all fake, it's not even real. If you do it, you're going to create big problems. There's going to be a response from Israel. You're going to make it harder to get a ceasefire.
Banning of Palestinian officials isn't completely without precedent. In 1988, during the Reagan administration, the US refused entry to the then Palestinian Liberation Organization leader, Yasser Arafat, from traveling to New York. But the scale and scope of the current bans is unparalleled. leading to increasing requests for Europe to propose a temporary transfer to Geneva in Switzerland, the UN's other main hub, and to send a clear signal for Trump. Gazans and Palestinians more broadly are accustomed to restrictions, censorship, and movement controls. But restrictions at the highest international diplomatic body in the world will have a chilling effect on any form of self-determination and destroy efforts for peace.
So how should the UN General Assembly proceed in light of these restrictions? Well, joining me now to debate that and much more are from Washington, Senior Fellow and Director of the Future of DHS Project at the Atlantic Council, Thomas Warwick. From Ramallah, attorney and former chair of the Legal Committee to Final Status Negotiations between Palestinians and Israelis, Hiba Husseini. And also from Ramallah, founder and leader of the Palestinian National Initiative, Mustafa Barghouti. Thanks all so much for being with me. Thomas, I'll begin with you. And as an American, tell us what you make of what's being done here and effectively blocking a diplomatic process from taking place. Does the U.S. have the right to do so?
Good evening to you and to your distinguished guests and to your viewers. So in 1947, when the United Nations headquarters was set up in New York City, the United States and the United Nations entered into a headquarters agreement that allows for anyone with business before the United Nations the right to come to the United States for the purpose of attending meetings at the United Nations. The headquarters agreement is very broad and sweeping. It would even allow in diplomats from countries with which the United States is technically at war. And with one exception, this has been honored. There is a national security exception to this, but in the past, when I was in the US government, we always interpreted this to mean that a president could not bring a bodyguard who would come to have meetings with terrorists or spies or other things that everybody would agree are a threat to any country's national security. So what's being done here does seem to be at odds with the 1947 headquarters agreement.
Right. And in effect, it means that meetings that Palestinians in particular were very much looking forward to, I can't speak for all of them, obviously, but Hiba, you, for example, all your commitment to finding a peaceful solution now faces this obstacle aimed at blocking diplomats and representatives from even talking at a key international gathering. So how badly does it set your work back in working on a two-state solution, and is there any way to maneuver around it?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Andrea, for having me along with the other distinguished guests. Good evening to everyone, including the viewers. I think it's every step of this nature is a setback, but we seem regrettably to be piling one setback after the other. When at a time when we need positive steps to end this war in Gaza, to end the starvation and the famine, to move us away from slowly towards two-state solution and to end the occupation, to create the necessary means. So for this kind of rapprochement, to put hurdles one after the other in the way of ending this conflict, which has been so protracted and has cost so many lives, is really a major step and sends the wrong message to the Palestinian people.
Do you think then, Hiba, that the UN General Assembly should proceed as normal, or should measures be taken to protest what's happening?
No, they should not proceed as normal. They should take measures. I mean, they did this in 1988, if we recall, when the late Yasser Arafat was chair of the PLO at the time, was also forbidden from entering the US. and the General Assembly moved the meetings to Geneva. So steps of this nature or other alternatives that they can pursue, and the time is soon approaching, so they need to act very quickly. Definitely, the Palestinians should not be excluded from international fora, and they should not be paying a heavy price when, in fact, they have extended every hand to peace.
Hiba, you say they need to move
to
quickly then if they're going to take those measures. Do you believe they will move quickly or even at all?
I cannot foretell. I don't know what's happening behind the scenes at the UN, at the General Assembly, with the Secretary General and all other states, member states. I trust they would.
Okay.
I hope this doesn't go without a major statement and active. I mean, to actively pursue an alternative. Yes,
Yeah.
not just by lip service.
Okay. Mustafa, I saw you smirk a little bit when I asked that question because, yes, blocking high-level discussions of a Palestinian state on this level, it really is unprecedented. Even though Yasser Arafat was also blocked in 1988, he was one individual, and the UN, they took that meeting to Geneva. And a few years after that, the Oslo Peace Accords were signed. So on the upside, could you envision a similar unfolding of events here that does ultimately end well, arguably?
Yes, but it is the Palestinian Authority, the PLO, that should ask immediately for moving the meeting to Geneva. I heard the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Luxembourg calling for that, Mr. Peter. And I think that's the right move. If the United States is obstructing the meeting where Palestinians should be represented, as in equal manner to all other countries, then they should ask to move the meeting to Geneva. I'm not sure they have done that, but that's what they should do. On the other hand, I think the United States prevention of Palestinians from attending, as they have decided. By the way, they canceled not only the visas for the Palestinian delegation, Mr. Trump decided to cancel all visas to all Palestinians who hold Palestinian passports. That's an act of collective punishment against all the Palestinian people. And that shows you three things. This American administration is violating international law. Second, this American administration is violating the host agreement that they have signed with the United Nations. They have no right whatsoever to prevent any leader or any delegation from attending the UN General Assembly. And by doing this, the United States is showing that maybe it is not the place where UN should be. Maybe it's time for the world to think of moving the whole United Nations to a more neutral area. Third, the most dangerous matter is that Mr. Trump and his administration are sending a message of animosity to the Palestinian people. In no way can anybody imagine that the United States is a mediator in this conflict or this situation. The United States is totally biased to Israel. And these acts of preventing other delegations from attending the UN General Assembly has happened, to my knowledge, only to Palestinians. That is worse than even the Israeli positions.
Okay. Let me ask Thomas then. I mean, should UN headquarters and the UN General Assembly even be held in New York if it allows the U.S., this kind of power to override diplomatic norms? And on a local level, I know you've heard plenty of New Yorkers complain that it's just not the right venue. Logistically, it becomes a nightmare. Security-wise, New York, Manhattan is a difficult place to try to secure for so many VIP attendees. So should it be reconsidered?
Well, New Yorkers have a love-hate relationship with many important institutions, including their sports teams. But the United Nations is one of them. And holding the meeting in New York brings an ability without equal to command the world stage, the media attention that is there, the ability to accommodate large numbers of delegations. I've done business at the United Nations offices in Geneva. They are much smaller. The hotels are fewer. The strain that it puts on the Swiss population is, frankly, on par with how New Yorkers feel. So that's not really an improvement.
So maybe we should move it to Beijing. Beijing is a much better location than Geneva.
Well, yes, and then you look at the airplane schedules there, it's a different story. Some of these problems you're going to have almost anywhere you try to hold a gathering of this scale and with this diversity of political opinion. I think the fact that this kind of thing has happened, only once every 37 years tells you that this is an infrequent problem. And so the question then is, how do we solve this particular problem? As Hind just said, in 1988, the decision was a whole bunch of diplomats flew from New York to Geneva. Arafat was allowed to speak. It must be remembered this is before the PLO had signed the Oslo Accords with Israel. So things obviously changed shortly thereafter. The problem this time around, though, is different and interesting. And despite the official reasons given by the U.S. government, I think we all recognize that what is trying to be done here is to prevent a photo op that would come from Palestinian officials meeting with European leaders who are ready to recognize Palestine as a state. And so if photo op is what they want, then that can be held somewhere else, including in Geneva.
Photo op is an interesting angle to look at there. But I mean, Hiba, as far as you're concerned, do you think your new proposals for a two-state solution via the Berlin Initiative are what Israel and the U.S. actually fear the most? Because it envisions a shared future that Israel, under this administration, does not want to share.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, indeed it is in one way or another. First of all, allow me to say that this is a form of punishment to Palestinians, not just the officials, but the Palestinian people. And I recall also during the first Trump administration, the PLO had a delegate office, diplomatic mission to Washington, and that was also closed, and that was a form of punishment as well. So this is accumulating, and so this is beyond the photo op issue. I think it is a statement against the two-state solution, no doubt about. No matter what the alternative that is being offered, be it the Holy Land Confederation through the Berlin Initiative or other two-state solution formulas that are being discussed and suggested. So I think really it is a hindrance to the two-state solution. It's going hand in hand and in tandem with the Israeli extreme right-wing, ultra-right-wing religious government. I mean, it's part of also reflects what's going on in the territories, be it Gaza, be it the West Bank, be it East Jerusalem. I mean, every single matter pertaining to Palestinians and our livelihood, be it at the international diplomatic level, international law, ICJ, ICC, all of these formulas that are available to Palestinians where we can pursue. What is it that we really are pursuing? We're pursuing an end to occupation. We're pursuing our right to self-determination. We're pursuing our right to freedom and independence like any other nation, and to enjoy at the end of this brutal occupation that is doing nothing but bloodshed and causing a huge disaster in Gaza, with the starvation, as I said, with the destruction and the long-term implications. I mean, the long-term implications in terms of the trauma, in terms of the psychological impact, in terms of, I mean, a loss of generations going to be, because you're losing education. Kids are not going to school. You don't have universities. You don't have hospitals. I mean, how do you deal with 2 million people in Gaza, forced into a small corner of an already small place?
Yeah, and that's what, Mustafa, that's why I asked you my previous question, because as Thomas says, this is something that maybe happens once every 37 years. But arguably in this case, the long-term, yeah, and the long-term damage done, some will argue, is not reversible the way it may have been 37 years ago. Like we said, Yasser Arafat, just a few years after he was banned from the UNGA, went to sign the Oslo Peace Accords. These aren't the same circumstances this time. The fact that genocide is now the accepted term among most world leaders, we're not dealing with the same conditions, are we?
Not at all. And that's why, I mean, what's happening is an act of assassination of the whole idea of two-state solution. Israel is liquidating the physical possibility of a two-state solution through settlement activities in the West Bank, in the Gaza, of course, in Jerusalem as well, and through the genocide, the collective punishment, including starvation, and also the plans of ethnic cleansing of the whole population of Gaza, which was supported by Mr. Trump. I mean, it is President Trump that spoke about transforming Gaza into a Riviera. So practically here we are witnessing a process through which all the talk about two-state solution becomes just a mental exercise, while in reality on the ground, Israel is destroying it. And that can be stopped only with one way. It's not enough that countries recognize Palestine. And those who are coming to recognize now, like Britain and France, are coming too late anyhow. But the recognition is welcomed because it affirms the right of self-determination. Yet it's not enough. What is required now are acts of punitive acts against Israel. What is required is to subject Israel to sanctions, exactly like has happened before with Russia. There is no justification whatsoever of the Western countries imposing 11,000 sanctions on Russia in less than 2 months, and none on Israel, which has practiced ethnic cleansing, discrimination, apartheid, occupation, oppression, and now genocide for 77 years.
And
What
Mustafa,
we need to correct the whole situation is really to take punitive action.
To take punitive action. So do you think in the coming weeks the United Nations might be able to show the world that they have the power to change the course and take that action? Because, or are we going to see a repetition of, the global public claiming that the UN is powerless, that it's just an exercise in talking shop and not actually executing what needs to be done for what the UN was actually laid out for?
In reality, the issue is not about Palestinians alone. Actually, what is being slaughtered now in Gaza is not only Palestinian people, but also the international law itself. And the whole legal system that was created internationally after the Second World War to preserve peace on the basis of the failure of what happened after the First World War. So now what we see is a total disaster and a failure of the whole international order. To correct that, the only chance for the United Nations, to correct that is to use Chapter 7 and have a resolution by the General Assembly to enforce the implementation of the ICJ resolution about ending the Israeli occupation.
So let me ask...
That's the only way. Otherwise, it will be, as you said, just another talk.
Final thoughts from Thomas, then, if that action would be taken, do you think, by the UN? Because there's also the issue of what's being done inside the United States and how much U.S. support for Israel is actually hurting the United States at this point, because more and more Americans seem to be aware that they're losing everything from credibility to money and becoming, in a sense, a pariah state at the cost of supporting Israel. I mean, that's the cost of supporting Israel.
Well, that is certainly not the view in Washington. And President Trump, who defies norms every day in his domestic policies, has no problem showing great disdain for the United Nations in other theaters as well. So this is not going to change. I think the challenge is going to be not the advocates of the two-state solution, but how the world sidelines those on both sides who favor a one-state solution. This really is the debate on the world stage that needs to happen, because the one thing that Mustafa, I think, would agree with me on is, in order for there to be a real, effective, genuine Palestinian state, there is exactly one country that has to agree, and that country is Israel. And so a Palestinian strategy to actually win Israeli support is the one thing that's missing from this entire equation. That would require another entire show to debate.
Yeah, and there is so much more to talk about, and I'm sure we'll be following up in the coming weeks.
May I say just
very quickly?
One sentence. Very quickly. In the case of South African apartheid system, the South African apartheid regime was not convinced. It was forced by sanctions, and that's exactly what should happen with Israel. It has to be forced. Without that, we will not have a solution. And I do agree that the best solution is one democratic state with equal rights for everybody.
That would be somewhat of a utopia at this point, but okay, I'm sure we're going to be discussing this much further over the coming weeks when we see how the UNGA proceeds. But I'd like to thank all three of you in the meantime so much for being with me, because we are completely out of time, unfortunately, for this edition of the Newsmakers. So thank you, and our viewers for being with us as well. Remember, you can follow us on social media, and do be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Andrea Sankey. We'll see you next time.